So how are we feeling? Did we have lunch? Do we have energy? Yes. Yay! We have another super interesting panel here, so I want your focus and your energy for these amazing people. So we're going to discuss about GenAI-empowered educational institutions. We heard a lot about concerns and applications previously, and now we're going to talk about more for educational institutions, what it means to have GenAI. And for this particular topic, we have three amazing people. And first of all, we have Dr. Γιώργος Χλιβερός. He is the Associate Dean of Faculty and the head of the Engineering Department at Metropolitan College.
That's
Thank
right.
you for being here.
Hiya.
Dr. Alexandros Papaspiridis. He's the Managing Director of Nefos Consulting, and he used to be at Microsoft, the Worldwide Education Director for Azure Cloud Computing. Thank you so much. And of course, Clara Hawking, the head of AI at GlobeEducate. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
So 1 minute for you to introduce yourselves.
Not much to say about me. I'm George. I head the engineering department at Metropolitan College. My background is in, well, robotics, AI, pattern recognition, machine vision, machine perception, stuff like that. I've been working on robotics and machine vision for the past, I don't know, 20 years, something like that. As far as education goes, I've been an educator, well, in higher education, rather. Past 10, 15 years, something like that. And that's pretty much it.
Alexandros Papaspiridis. So I have a PhD from Imperial College, and I think this planted the seeds for being in education. And I've been quite fortunate while being at Microsoft some 7, 8 years ago. I was tasked to lead the education business in Asia, so covering from India to all the way to Japan and New Zealand, and I serve on the advisory board at Imperial College. The other passion for me was AI, and I serve at the National University of Singapore Center for AI, and I write on that. So what happened in the last 12 months for me is very serendipitous, and I'm looking forward to our panel today. Clara.
Yes, so I work with GlobeEducate, which is a large group of private international schools located around the world, and we provide K through 12 education. Most of our schools are bilingual schools. We have some schools that are trilingual schools as well. And in each country, we offer the national curriculum in addition to some international curriculum as well. And yeah, I think that's it.
Amazing. Great lineup. So from the previous panel, there was a comment that stood out to me by Stavros Yannouka. He said that he was skeptical about technology in education until AI came here. So he said that his perspective changed now with AI in education. So I want to ask you, do you think that AI is a game changer compared to other tech revolutions? And can you give me any promising applications that, according to you, are going to change all the educational sector?
There are two ways of seeing this. It's either towards your staff members or towards your students. So towards your staff members, it's definitely a game changer because you can identify things that are causing a bottleneck on their workload, so you can alleviate their workload. And leave them time to do more interesting things like, I don't know, change the curriculum, embed more things into assessment components, change the assessment components. I mean, nowadays we have many types of assessment components which we can more freely use, because in the old days it used to be a bit more complicated. Now, with respect to students, I don't know. I may be a heretic saying that I think it should be embedded and students should be allowed from the get-go to use generative AI just because they can. I mean, if you say you do not allow them to do it, you're simply naive. They are going to do it and they will do it. I mean, in engineering, for example, which is most of my working experience as an educator, we do a lot of coding. Now, generative AI can give you really nice code which really works. And why not? I mean, use it. And if students learn to use generative AI and have different sorts of, snippets, and they can put them together and make something good, then why not? The problem is not so much as to whether they will use AI. The problem is, how do you make your learning outcomes and your assessment components to fit that? That's my view anyway.
Yeah, traditional tests won't work anymore, right?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, and forcing them to start from zero while they can just use ChatGPT and get a draft of their coding and then work on that and make it better.
They have to interpret the code.
Yeah.
But they do not have necessarily to generate it from zero. And to be honest, as far as coding is concerned, who does that? I mean, you get templates, or you get examples from the internet, or you get several different things from the internet, and then you manipulate that to fit your coursework. That's what I did when I was a student. Then nowadays you have GenAI, which does it for you. Great. You don't have to spend too much time Googling things. Mm-hmm. That's what I think, anyway.
I love it.
Yeah, I think I would like to disagree with Stavros' assessment about skeptical of the technologies, because all along in our history, these are tools which have been using. If we think about, ballpoint pens and calculators and computers and, radio and TV, which were all, part of the education. And educators always, felt, oh, this is going to change it. So I think the education system and the educators and the communities are much more resilient. So, we should not be afraid that this change is going to disrupt. I think it has some characteristics which are, very, very different. And, to come to an example, if what we were discussing yesterday, Elena, when they did the survey at Stanford students 1 month after the introduction of ChatGPT, when everybody thought, oh, they're using it to cheat in the assessment, actually, this was not the number one. The number one way they were using it is for brainstorming. So I think the challenge that we will have, and we will discuss it, is now that we have students which are much more advanced than the teachers, the faculty, and how do we support them, and how do we bridge these expectations. Now, if we look at AI specifically, last year, with my colleague Jason LaGreca at Microsoft, we published a chapter in a book which was called AI in Education, Will the Promise Be Delivered? This was we prepared this before the generative AI, so we covered everything. The first applications of AI in education were back in 1970, 1990. So, even at the early stage, this was recognized that this has a lot of potential to help educators. For me, the number one, I think, game changer is going to be if we shift what they're teaching, which we are doing today, which is, the fixed time teaching. We have a term, like 13 weeks. And then at the end of the term, we teach something for 13 weeks. And then at the end of the term, you sit in an assessment, and then they feed you in a bell curve. Now, I think what we have the capability is to move to mastery learning, where you can do things at your own time, and you will achieve the mastery level. So it's not so much about, hey, I'm going to pass with a D, but it's about, hey, can I do it at my own time and achieve the level of the mastery? Now, this is obviously, why do we do it today? It's because, we are resource limited. And I think that's the promise we have, is to be able to augment these resources with AI to be able to achieve that. For me, that will be the big game changer.
Oh, I want to make some comments on that, because I've read that there were two very ambitious teachers in the US in the past, in the late 90s, that they were very fond of mastery-based learning, but they didn't have the resources. They were trying to reach a standard master level for all the students and then move forward, but they didn't have all the private tutoring. They didn't have all the time to help each student individually, and they didn't have the resource to create the learning sources for that as well. So GenAI may help with that, and we can be successful in the third time that we try it. Okay, it's your time.
Yeah, I think very, very good points. I think I'm a little bit two ways about what's the big shift, because I know everybody's talking about generative AI, but I'm thinking a lot about the impact that quantum computing will have on K-12 education in 10, 15 years down the road, and merge that with generative AI, I think is the future that we're heading towards. And we're also heading towards a screen-free future, which I think will be a relief. And I say that to point out that one of the problems with digitalization and the digitalization hype was that we ended up to a large extent with getting teachers on laptops. We got teachers to make PDFs out of their paper notes. We made them build digital classrooms for assignments and keep grades on the assignments. But we never really spent any time in the last 20 years on developing pedagogy. How are you using the tools? Why are you using the tools? When should you not use the tool? How old should children be when they use the tools in school? And what subjects lends itself well to the tools and what does not? What should remain in an analog environment? How important that early childhood brain development is. And how much should the adults in the environment be on those machines as well, because it leads to absent parenting or absent teaching because you're distracted yourself by the tool. And I think the big game changer is that generative AI forces us out of simply just sticking a computer in a classroom or sticking a smart board up instead of a whiteboard or chalkboard. And it forces us to think about how we're using the technology and when we should use the technology. I think it's a fantastic opportunity now for teachers to be part of developing pedagogy for the future. And in truth, I think that many of the skills our teachers need to succeed in the AI future, they already have. Teachers know how to build relationships, they know how to think critically, they know how to innovate, they know how to test new ideas in the ecosystem of a school, a little greenhouse of minds, in a safe way. They know how to not jump too quickly into something new without first asking those safeguarding questions. And those are timeless skills. Now we have an opportunity to move out of this 200-year-old factory model of having kids sit in rows. Instead of having them sit with paper and pen or chalkboards, we have them sit on a computer. And you can walk into many schools around the world and see that kids are sitting there with 20 computers as if they're in an office landscape. And they're tuned out and they're not learning. Because of all of these opportunities they have now to decide their own learning path, they're not going to put up with the way it used to be. They are going to want to be active learning. They're going to want to do applied learning. They're going to want to do project-based learning because they don't have the patience to sit there and listen to a teacher for 8 hours a day behind a computer. So I think that we're going to see a lot of things pushing us in that direction. And we're going to see a different classroom in the coming years.
I loved your point. So training for the teachers, because these tools are very powerful, just because you can tell anything you want. There are no buttons. You just talk to it, and you can say anything. And also, we should adjust the way students learn, because it's a new generation. They're used to more project-based things. And we should adopt our educational system to that as well. So I will stick to the first point, teachers. The ones that have the domain expertise, our beloved teachers, we need to help them use these tools, right? We need to train them, because you buy a Panini press and it comes with a manual. These tools are much more powerful. So we should have a discussion with the teachers to let them know what these tools are and aren't. And I want to share an example. Metropolitan College has a great partnership with 100 mentors, and they trained more than 400 teachers and faculty members and administrators on how to use these tools, on AI literacy. And I just want to zoom out a bit and ask you what kind of strategies you would suggest for teachers on how to be trained to use these GenAI tools.
Well, there are multiple levels of knowledge, so starting point would be what AI is and what isn't. Not go into coding or, deep learning theory and stuff like that, just what tools are there, how to use them, and what they produce. Most importantly, how to interpret it, because the answer that you get from any AI tool is not necessarily the correct one, or it may have biases which you are not even aware of. I mean, AI tools have been out there for more than 10 years now. It's just that it has been released to the public now more openly than it used to. So I guess you have to train them, you have to learn them what to do and what not. Ethics is a big part of it. How do you ethically use the tool rather than just use it and just trust the reply you get? And make workshops on that, practical examples of how to interactively use, say, a generative AI tool whilst you're teaching students, and maybe via your example, as previously said, project-based learning is a big part of it. How do you use the tool, and then how do you incorporate it into your solution? Stuff like that, I think.
I'd like to zoom out a little bit from that, because I think the bigger question for this is how do we drive systemic change? And this is a subject of a paper which I'm writing with Simon Bates, who is the Vice Provost of University of British Columbia right now. Because if we look, what happened at COVID, where we had a huge shift in the online learning, and we had a lot of pioneering educators using it. But then, what has left out of it? After the pandemic is gone, we just went back to our old ways. So why this change, which we had an opportunity, this crisis we had, why we didn't incorporate anything on 5 years later? So, if you look at the work of Michael Fullan and Caitlin Donnelly, it says, there are 3 critical forces that intersect to drive educational transformation. Pedagogy, which you mentioned, technology, and system change. So success is being able to address all these 3 components, not just one, the technology. And I think the mistake which we are making is we are looking at this only, at the component of the technology alone, and not looking about the pedagogies. Pedagogies alone is a huge subject. Do we have actually data-driven proof that this is is working, or is it the fad, the fashion which which we are following because it's the thing du jour. But also, if we look about systemic changes, it has to do with leadership, it has to do with policies, the organizational structures, the professional development. And to be honest, we haven't been doing a great job on professional development, looking at, again, at systemic changes. So also, do we accept failure? Do we accept, do we encourage experimentation? Do we encourage people trying things and learning and creating this culture of continuous improvement? It's not like we have the wisdom for everything that's going to happen. We have to understand that this is a period of change, and we should treat it as such. So if you think about this, how do we do on professional development, both in K-12 and higher ed? And because I focus a lot on higher ed, one of the things is that, and George, you will appreciate it coming from that, is that the focus in higher ed is always about research. If you look at universities and so on, it's all the metrics are research-driven, how many papers you have published. Teaching takes second priority. So university leaderships there are critical to change the balance, to encourage people to spend more time. Because if you want to incorporate, there's a plethora of trials out there with generative AI. It's not that we don't have good approaches. I think what we are lacking is the support of every single teacher and every single faculty in this journey. And this would require that we provide them resources, but also we relieve them of other things that they are doing, and we are putting them as a first priority.
It's not that we don't know that there are better pedagogies than the ones that exist right now in schools, but we didn't have the technology and the systemic change that you mentioned. And we hope that now is the time that we will have all three success factors. Thank you.
Yes, so Globe Educate is very committed to the teachers, and as a consequence of our commitment, we are building a training platform and a training program for all of our educators in all of our schools, which will be accessible to them in their preferred language, or Globe Educate language. And it's a complex environment because we have from very early childhood development to secondary school. We have teachers from all over the world. More than 100 languages are spoken within the Globe Educate teacher group. And we have all variations of capabilities and abilities, and also variations of desires to learn this. And professional development is one of those things that have often been underfunded in schools, under-prioritized, not just from an administrative side, but also from teachers who really want to do professional development, but they don't have the time. So it gets put to the side, or it gets done very quickly and not followed up on, which means they might learn, but not be able to apply. So we're trying to address that in a variety of ways. One, by investing in a learning management system where we can build the digital pathway for teacher AI literacy. So we're developing a framework for a baseline, and also to facilitate face-to-face workshops and online webinars. So we'll get everybody on board. And we will have a series of things that will be mandatory. So for example, around AI and safeguarding, there will be some sessions there that everybody will have to learn. And then there will be a choice as well, like a smorgasbord of learning for the relevant area. But with that being said, I think it is also important to zoom out, because we are talking about a systems change, and I think that thinking that this generative AI is a problem about students cheating. Yes, they cheat. They've always cheated. Or that it's a problem about teachers needing skills, I think is underestimating the impact of this technology. It's every part of a school ecosystem that will be affected and is affected by the AI. Some significant parts will be disrupted, advising, marketing, comms. A lot of the AI tools can already do some of that work faster and better. And we're going to see significant disruption there. So we're really talking about thinking of AI as impacting the whole organization and getting everybody ready to apply an AI-first attitude. And one of the things that I think has put us in an advantage over other organizations by placing a position such as mine within our group rather than relying on consultants is that we've been able to put the foundation in place this year for us to really go full pedal next year. We have our AI policy for the organization, our AI academic integrity policy. All of our well-being documents have been updated with thinking about AI, tool packs for cyber incidents, cyber harms, and our AI, we've run an AI audit on all of our IT systems. I think it puts us one step ahead so that our next goal is to get everybody the right tools and the right training to use them well, but we have the framework in place. And I think that needs to be there in order to successfully support the teachers in their transition. It has to come from leadership.
Mm-hmm. As you were speaking, I realized that I only think about teachers, how we're going to train the teachers, but we also have the administrators that you mentioned. We can upskill right now everyone that is inside the educational institution, not only the teachers, but also the administrators. If we want to reduce the cost and have more budget allocation on the training of the teachers, we should put the administrators also in this budget so that we can upskill everyone, not only the ones that are teaching in classrooms.
Elena, may I interject on that, which is a great point, because first there's two things. First, the sweet spot, if you ask something which is easier for us to do, is go and put AI on administrative systems. For example, if you look in university, there is tens of different offices which are they have some role to play in assisting students. Now, if you're a first-year student, you are lost about, if you have an issue, where you should go. There are tens of different offices and for different things. AI could simplify this, and by ingesting all these different services, what do they do, and being a front end. But the second most important is the point that you raised is about, hey, who are the constituents in this process? Of course, we have teachers and faculty, we have the administrators, including the leadership, but we also have students. And students in a higher education environment are adults. And there should not be an afterthought. Hey, we do it for you. They should be part of the design process. And we are doing a study with the Association of Pacific Rim Universities, which is 60 universities along the Pacific Rim of Fire, from South America to West Coast US, all the way down to Australia and New Zealand. And this is what has struck me is even the most advanced, they are testing things with students. They don't use the students to be part of it and come with the ideas. Because students have now a lot of ideas. And I think this is a big change, and this is the missing link if we are going to change education for good, is how we involve students.
And we want them to have ideas. We want them to be creative, because this is a differentiating factor for the students.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in on that as well, because this is a passion subject of mine. So one of the things that we have done this year in the Globe Educate group is to really push the development of AI youth councils in all of our campuses. And by the end of the year, we want to make sure that we have everybody fully established and have that network completely in place. And one of the reasons for that is that we want the students to be actively involved in not just developing their own AI literacy curriculum, but also the teachers' AI literacy curriculum. We want to shift our relationship to one where we are the knowledge people, giving them knowledge to being learning partners, that we go through this relationship of lifelong learning together. And they have a very unique perspective. So they're called digital natives because they've always grown up with technology. The rest of us have had to learn it the other way around. And there are some things that are very intuitive to them. And it doesn't mean that they can do everything. For example, they struggle with understanding that social media is designed to keep them engaged. So they struggle with tuning out of the technology. But they know a lot, and their insights are incredibly important if we're going to succeed in this. They really are part of our partnership. And so we have our AI literacy curriculum for students K through 12 under development right now. And just a few weeks from now, we will be sending that out to our AI youth councils as well, for them to rip it apart and give feedback. And we find that invaluable. I've been around visiting a lot of our schools already, and I make a point of meeting with the young people, and it is just incredible the insights that they have that we wouldn't necessarily have thought about. So you're absolutely right. A big piece of the puzzle is get those kids activated, make them your partners, solution partners that use their insights, because they have really unique perspectives.
And it's great, Clara, because obviously in K through 12 we're doing things for students, so it's great to see that you're incorporating them in the process.
We've become friends, as you can see. And so we talked about having students in the loop, designing with them the tools, and also having teachers in the loop, and not just presenting some new tools, okay, just use it. We design everything together. So this comes to my next question. So usually when we talk about GenAI in education, we think about, a private tutor for everyone, personalized learning. But when you talked about mastery-based learning, master-based learning is based on collaborative learning and peer-to-peer learning. So I'm wondering whether GenAI can help with that. Can it contribute to social learning so that students work together, learn together, instead of just having each child in front of the monitor, in front of the screen, learning alone? What do you think?
I suppose yes. But then again, it depends on the training the actual people have got on those tools, how to use them, under which context, under which domain. Different domains require different types of learning, I suppose. Most of the things that I find rather difficult to incorporate is how do you... There are some modules in specific professions because of the professional requirements, whereas you cannot use certain things. So you can do collaborative learning, and in some modules you simply cannot because it's not included in the curriculum. So curriculum change is yet another thing that has to be done in order to incorporate all these things. So, yeah.
Again, this is a great point because obviously the personalized tutors is just one tool in our arsenal for the pedagogies. And I'd like to bring an example. 5-6 years ago, Professor David Kellerman at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, he created a bot. And this was pre-generative AI, as you can appreciate. This was long before that. And essentially what he did is he encoded in a knowledge base all the questions he was getting from his students. And whenever he built a channel on Teams, so whenever a student would ask something at 2 a.m. or any time of the day, the bot would look at its knowledge base and would come up with an answer if it has seen it before. If not, he would broadcast it to the network of his class. He was running a huge class, about 600 students. He was first year mechanical engineering. And the students would jump to answer this. And if the student was not happy with this answer he was getting from his colleagues, he could raise it to the TAs. So this did a number of things. First, it helped the students to be able to raise to get an answer any time of the day, 24/7, without having to wait for the next office hours of the TAs. And it was helping the students contribute to other students. And this raised the satisfaction of his class to the highest on the first years of University of New South Wales. So the collaborative environment, it has been great. And now with generative AI, we can do much more with that. Another example, Microsoft has released on GitHub a repo of prompts, of generative AI prompts. They partnered with Ethan Mollick, yeah, who is now one of the most innovative voices on generative AI with Ethan and Lilach Mollick. And they have built also a number of prompts which will help about how do you create a team, how do you do the pre-mortem, how do you get feedback. So yeah, it's happening right now. Again, it's about pedagogies. I think that's the great point, and this is where the human is. The human creates the prompts, the human creates the pedagogies, and then we have the opportunity to scale with generative AI.
Yeah, I hope we see collaboration when it comes to prompts again, because someone comes up with a prompt and then the next person can improve this prompt.
Yeah.
And the output is improved as well. If you don't know Ethan Mollick, please check it out. He's amazing. He's a professor at UPenn and he's doing a great job with prompt engineering. And yeah, we come to your point.
Yeah, so I think to answer your question, I think it's a little bit tricky because I think there's a push-pull there as well. I think that personalized learning sounds really good. We're hearing a lot of conversation about that, and I do think that everyone that has worked in education or is currently working in education sees that there are students that don't fit neatly inside the box, and they struggle in school. They suffer, they find it difficult, and certainly these new technologies will give them an opportunity to engage in education in ways that they haven't before, and generative AI will be able to support teachers in finding strategies on what could work supporting these students. I also meet many students who tell me that they are starting to talk to their AIs, little buddies, and that they find it quite comforting, especially the younger students. The older students are not so interested in that. But I have also seen some research come out recently on personalized learning, where indeed the students are learning faster and more effectively, but they generally feel more lonely in their learning journey. So I think it's not so easy said as it is done. And I think it would be a mistake for us to park kids in front of a computer doing personalized individual learning. The future is skills-driven. The skills that students need for the future, among others, is collaboration skills, adaptability. They need to be able to be in an environment where they can quickly shift and change. They need to be able to be good at communicating with their team about that. Those are life skills that they can take with them into the future. And they do not learn those by sitting and just prompting with generative AI. We've got to get them up in small groups and working together. So I think that there will be a sort of a natural push from the workforce saying, you're sending us students that don't have the abilities that we need. And so curriculum will change. But until then, we're in this sort of strange place where we're winging it for a while until we get it right. Which is unfortunate, but that's how change is. I think we will see that come around in the coming years.
This was consistent to the feedback we got back from COVID when we had Teams and Zoom and so on. But then what was missing is the interaction that you had when you met in person. So a lot of universities, after COVID, they were doubting the investments that they should do on campus. And I said, the students will not come back. No, they go there not because they want to sit on a lecture, it's because they want to sit and learn with their team members. This is the interaction that they have. That's why the physical facilities exist, but they don't exist for a 600 places auditorium. This is obsolete now. I think this element of working together. So now all universities have gone into flexi spaces and collaborative and working in hybrid environments.
Yeah, your points really resonate with me because I was part of a discussion and people were talking about AI intimacy. What if children and students, or not even children, but people start building relationships with these GenAI tools, and we just sit there in front of the monitor, in front of the screen, build relationships with the GenAI tools, and we forget about building relationships with our peers, with our friends, with our family. Yeah, so I had one more question regarding quality and pedagogy, but I think we covered that from your previous points. So I want to open up the floor to the audience for any questions that you may have.
Hello, thank you so much. My name is Miguel Forte. I'm a director of ML at Kosely. What I wanted to ask the panel, no one in particular, just open, is you mentioned a number of times the idea about sort of curriculum change and the changing nature of this. I'm very curious to hear what your perspectives are on the future of the degree, the university degree as an idea. How is this going to change, both from the perspective of responsible and ethical AI and how this means, tying into the earlier panel about sort of opportunities and fairness across different communities, but also from the perspective of what should people study and how people should expect to structure their learning, as well as from an employer's perspective, how valuable and how useful is this notion of the degree as one of the pivotal decision points there. Thanks.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'll jump in on. I'll bite. I like that one. What should you study? What should children study? They should study what they love. They should follow their passions, because that always works. Because no matter how you study or what you study, it always gets difficult. But if you're passionate about it, you're going to get through those difficult parts. And in terms of what's the pathway forward, I think that we will see less of a move towards university. I just heard OpenAI earlier today say, look, we don't care if you have a degree. If you're self-taught, it's fine. What can you do? I think if you go to Elon Musk's website for AI and look for a job, that's the entry question. What have you done in AI that's amazing? So it's really a skills-driven future. And when we combine our young people with AI agents that can support the gap that they might have in knowledge and experience, we have young people that are not going to want to waste their time with going to university. They're going to want to go to a vocational school, or they're going to want to go directly out into the workforce, or they will have their AI go to work for them while they're surfing in Bali. But we will see different pathways. It won't be just this K-12 into university. And where you went to university is going to be less important comparatively to what can you do. Show me your portfolio, show me your skills. So that's going to be really important. What those skills are going to be is going to vary greatly, and I think it should vary greatly around the interest that the child has. Maybe they're very interested in creative work, so they'll do something with design or art or whatever it might be, music, film, and some want to study tech. It's going to be the same range as we see today. I have predicted, and I believe in that, that we will see a reigniting of interest in the humanities and the arts, because those skills that humans are developing in humanities and in arts are actually skills that will help humans navigate the AI era. And so I think that we will see more and more of that in our schools, which I think is good news for everyone, because it will be a lot of fun. So I think that those are some of the changes we'll see in the pathways forward.
I have a slightly less optimistic view than Clara on that. Universities are a 1,000-year-old institution. Maybe they are not the oldest profession on this planet, but they are probably the second one. So if you think that they will die or change, they will not die or change anytime soon. Definitely not in our lifetime. Now, they need to change? Everybody says that we need to change. Will they change? No. And it's a complicated process why they don't change. And if you look even at the students, where they are looking, is they're also looking at the brand. It's a complicated, I think we could spend a day talking about that, why they don't change. Now, I don't believe that we will go into a skills only. There has been a lot of conversation, particularly during COVID. And I don't believe that what universities do is obsolete in the sense, hey, do we need to teach C or Python on my first year when we can do it online? So it will take time. My message is it will take time. The most convoluted answer is that the accreditation bodies play a big role on that, and this doesn't. George, I think, can give you a lot more insight on that. And this will not be able to, we cannot do the change, this change very quickly.
At least we hope that the accreditation, the way we give credits, the assessments will change at least. Do you want some more comments?
Well, if the assessment changes, then everything is possible, as previously mentioned by both of you. We tend to forget also the fact that there is sooner or later going to be a regulatory framework in all this. So the regulatory framework will vastly either limit or expand. So whichever way it goes, nobody knows. I mean, the EU has only recently put forward an AI regulatory framework. The US was faster, but maybe not that fast. And also, just to make a mention of, just to build on top of what you just said, it's what the CEO of NVIDIA recently said. Why should you learn coding? It's being produced. Just learn how to use it. And actually, he built on that point, saying, in the past 10, 15 years, everybody, would tell you, learn to code. Nowadays, it's exactly the opposite. Learn how to use the produced code.
I have a question on that. So I used coding to learn how to think. So coding taught me how to think. If we don't learn coding now, how are we going to learn how to think?
Well, you don't need to learn coding. You need to learn algorithmic thinking and computational
computational thinking, algorithmic
Because
thinking.
people think that when we say you don't have to learn how to code, we think that you don't learn...
The code is a tool.
Yeah.
C, Python,
100%.
C++, whichever coding language, which, by the way, changes every 10 years, right? So you learn C, C++, then sometime you say, OK, now I have to learn Java. No, now I have to learn Python. It's just a tool. The algorithmic thinking or the computational process that goes through making an algorithm is the actual tool, is the actual learning outcome that is going to be there. And in the end, if you know how to do this, it doesn't matter which tool it is. It can be C, C++, it can be generative AI, who cares, really? Now, as to whether the universities are going to be there and whether the university degree, you know, puts value on somebody's arsenal, portfolio, as previously led, it will always be there. Why? Because the domain-specific knowledge will simply can simply not come out of anything else. It may not be called university, it may be called something else, but it's going to be something like that. Maybe the degrees are not going to be 4 or 5 years long as they are now. They're going to be shorter, or they may be longer. Because if you want to have collaborative learning over vast groups of people and so on, it may be longer, but it doesn't really matter. I think it's always going to be there.
And you know, to your point, you know, there have been cases like with Minerva and so on. But you know, if you look at the 20,000 universities globally, you know, these are 2, 3, 4, 10. You know, they have not moved the needle yet. So we haven't really established a way which we can drive a big change, and that's an issue. There are efforts. In the UK now is TEDdy, for example, a collaboration between ASU, University of New South Wales, and King's College. But it's still, you know, small things. We haven't found the recipe to change the system.
Great points, and I think we're out of time. But if you have more questions, please find our panelists later and continue your discussion. Thank you so much. Let's celebrate. Yeah. Thank you so much.